Thank everybody for hanging out with us. We're gonna talk to a couple about another living donor story. I'm gonna add them to the screen here so we can share screen time. This is Nick and Leslie, and in 2009, Nick and Leslie's journey began when they met online, sparking a connection that would lead to a life-changing partnership. Leslie began dialysis in 2017. And then during the COVID outbreak, she received the ultimate gift from Nick, a kidney. Nick is now her loving husband. They got married in Napa, California, where they both live and work full time. And in their free time, they enjoy the simple pleasures of life, such as gardening, cooking, spending time with friends, like we all do. So we're going to hear a little bit from Nick and Leslie about their journey of resilience and love and hope. So with that, let's just get started. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how the conversation started?
Sure. And thank you for having us here. It's really
Thanks.
appreciate it. Yeah. So how the conversation started, well, basically, it's transplant listed, and given the county we lived in, we could be associated with two different hospitals. But then, as you go along and you come to the realization that, the wait list is, 7 years, 10 years in this area, maybe more. So I did kind of make a soft outreach to friends, and they, knew my situation, and a couple of relatives. And I did have two friends who did look into it to see if they would be viable donors, but they weren't in the end. And to me, I didn't want to ask Nick if he wanted to volunteer to be to start the process to see. I wanted that to be up to him and without any pressure from me. So I think, when the realization came that how long the process would be, a waiting list, and also having had a couple of medical issues come up with me, I think you kind of thought maybe to look into it.
From my perspective, I was late 50s, approaching 60, and I'd had a thyroid operation and was on thyroid hormone, and a little bit older than Leslie. And it just didn't really dawn on me that I could donate a kidney to her. And it's kind of funny because after the fact, once the process was going, I had a good customer of mine share with me that another customer who we all know each other had actually donated a kidney to his wife when he was 60 years old. That came a little bit later, but it's like it just I hadn't really thought about it, and she went through her friends and family, and it didn't dawn on me that I would be compatible and I would be accepted, and turns out I was.
Wow, that's awesome. So what happened next? How did you get to the next step?
How did we?
Well, just a long vetting process, as usual. But
It basically what happened is in 2019, when she was in the hospital with multiple surgeries due to complications from her peritoneal dialysis, where she diverticulitis set her peritoneal cavity on fire with bacteria, and she had sepsis, and could have very easily passed away if not for some brilliant surgeons and a great hospital, and us getting her there just in time. And she's a tough one because she was sitting here on the floor when I got home from work, and oh, I'm fine, and she couldn't even get up to crawl into the bed. And it's like, well, maybe we have a problem here. And so we get to the hospital, we get through that And it was a 6-week process before she came home. And it's like, well, you know, let's see if I'm compatible. So, something hits you in the face and you have a little bit different perspective when we had worn out other potential volunteer options, and the backlist at UCSF was still years and years, and the other hospital we could have gone to a little bit quicker, but still a long time. And it's like life is too short. We just got lucky, and on that one, let's go ahead and try this. And we started the process. And I was scared to death because I thought they'd find something wrong with me, because I'm almost 60 years old, and I didn't want to know if I wasn't compatible because I had a problem. But it's staring in the face of all this, it's like, no, we got to give it a try.
So you went through all the testing, you were compatible, you
Mhm.
get to the hospital for
Yep.
both of your surgeries. And how did that go? What was that experience like?
Yeah, so yeah, we get to the hospital, and then Nick actually was called in about a half an hour before me. And so he went up, and then they took me up, and it was, the normal, probably pre-op, all of that. It was very smooth, and I kind of was wondering, which bay is he in? Where is he exactly? And I could kind of hear, I think I heard his voice, and so, you do your regular pre-op with your nurses and the whole thing, and but always wondering, where is he and what's happening and how is he and all of that. And then our story kind of in the pre-op kind of took on a little different life of its own.
Yeah, thanks to largely a nurse, but it started where the story starts for me is when we're sitting in the waiting room and all of a sudden somebody's staring down at me, you ready to go? And, we're just sitting here passing time, and it's like, oops, I guess it's time. And it's just out of nowhere. We're just sitting there being supportive of each other and anticipating what's next. And then it's like, boom, we're going. And I grab my stuff, start walking away with her, give Leslie a hug and a kiss. And then I get to the end of the room. Before we walk out the door, I look back, and Leslie looked so far away and so lonely. I'd never seen her quite like that before. And it was just like a really quick transition. Boom, let's go. And so then I get upstairs, meet the nurse, and she runs me through the routine and asks me if I know who I'm donating the kidney to. And I said, yeah, my girlfriend. She goes, wow, that's really cool. How long have you known her? And I go, 11 years. And, telling a woman that you've known this other woman 11 years and she's still a girlfriend, you're not married, just sounded a bit bad. And to save face, I told her the rest of the story. And that is, I had a box in the closet, my great grandmother's engagement ring, which Leslie had inadvertently tried on. We were going through estate stuff months before. And I explained to her I'd intended on giving this to her and proposing, but just the timing wasn't right with all the estate stuff and her issue the year before with the operations, and then running around and my testing, and then COVID hit, and it's like there just didn't seem to be the right time to get down on a knee and give her a ring. So she accepts that and takes off. The attendings come in, the residents come in, the doctor comes in, the anesthesiologist comes in, and they poke and prod and ask me the same questions over and over. And then finally the nurse comes back and says, you ready to go? And I said, sure. So she gives me a little pre-anesthesia. And while she's doing that, she explains to me, speaking of curtains, like Leslie was imagining where we were. And when I was explaining the story to the nurse, I'm whispering because I don't know if Leslie's right next to us or not. And she says, you know, I found out where they were prepping Leslie. And under the circumstances, I think we need to break protocol and just stop by and wish her good luck. So she wheels me out. Leslie and I weren't next door to each other. Around the corner, take a right, 2 curtains down, and she kind of sticks her head in the curtain, stops and sticks her head in the curtain. Excuse us. She sees everybody's decent and we're not interrupting too much yet. And so she whips the curtains over and I'm on the gurney and there's a nurse with Leslie and they kind of look up half in shock. And then they see what's going on. And I just tell Leslie I love her and we're in the best hands. And I'll see you in a little bit. Oh, and by the way, will you marry me? And that's the last I remember of this part of the story. I'll hand it back over to Leslie to explain how it felt on the other side.
Yeah, well, kind of in shock, obviously. And, you know, of course I accepted but just being able, in the midst of COVID, you know, and looking at all the faces and the people that were surrounding, you know, in that, we're in the hallway and all turning into that situation and seeing their reactions was just priceless. And you know, in one point, one woman kind of was in shock and she said, and he's giving her a kidney too. And so along with all that. And so they left, and I turned to my anesthesiologist nurse and I said, because he was a little loopy, and I was just thinking, you know, I hope he remembers tomorrow what he just said.
I'm always a little bit loopy.
So,
And I should say it was my anesthesiology nurse that was the one, and it was her energy that you just don't expect in a hospital. You know, attitude is just so contagious, and she was so upbeat and bubbly and fed off of our story, and she helped inspire this story to continue. And the next thing I knew was I'm up in my room, and there's a nurse checking my vital signs and starting to talk to me and seeing if I'm conscious and explain to me, you know, where I am and make sure I'm okay. And I know the drug protocols, if I need some extra pain meds or something. And she says, did you see the sign on the front of your IV tower? And I go, no, I can't even see my IV tower. Where is it? And so she reaches over, grabs it, and rolls it in front of me. And one of the nurses had made a little sign on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and there was a heart, the date, 10/8/2020, Nick and Leslie, and at the bottom it said, she said yes.
I love that part of the story. That's my favorite.
And it hadn't dawned on me, and it wasn't my intention. Like I said, I was inspired by the nurse in the moment, and you know, some tough years before where it just wasn't right. It didn't seem like the right time, but it was really kind of fun to have lit up and inspired the hospital post-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And
Definitely.
so our story was, you know, kind of neat. And we're still here. It was successful, but knowing how hard COVID was on hospital workers, you know, as proud as I am of donating a kidney, it's even more exciting to have really made those hospital workers, you know, something to come to work that was exciting and not a bummer and a downer. And they would whisper outside our doors, oh, is that the one? Is she the one? Is he the one?
Making excuses to come into your room, right? I just need to get this.
Well, it was usually the change of shift because they'd all heard of it, but when they walk up for change of shift the first time, then they would wonder. And So I wouldn't hesitate to do it again,
That's
even if
awesome.
you're 60 years old.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So what do you guys think you've learned through all of this? What would you share with other people as advice?
Keep your eyes and ears open. And I think I heard that from some of the other speakers is, don't be afraid to be an advocate for yourself or for somebody else. And have your eyes and ears open, and don't be afraid, ask questions. And in my job, it's a very social job because it's the golf business. And for me, what made it so easy was after I had already started testing for a kidney, when a good customer of mine shared with me that his friend Paul, who I knew very well, had given a kidney to his wife. I didn't mention this earlier, but at the time Paul was 80 years old. So he had donated a kidney to his wife at 60, and they were still going strong at 80. They were still going strong 20 years later. And so I was like, okay, what have I got to worry about?
Right.
My hospital had slightly better ratings than his hospital. So it was just
Well, that's awesome. Thank you guys for sharing your story.